The massive alien ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came without warning, their crystalline surfaces reflecting Earth's sunlight like giant diamonds in the sky. 12 ships, each larger than Manhattan, positioned themselves around the planet's equator in perfect geometric spacing. Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee in the UN building when the emergency alarm started blaring. As Earth's chief diplomat for extraterrestrial contact, she had trained for this moment for 15 years. But all that training couldn't stop her hand from shaking slightly as she straightened her blue suit and walked toward the crisis room. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," announced General Martinez as Sarah entered. The wall screens showed the alien ships, their surfaces shifting like liquid crystal. It's being transmitted in over 50 Earth languages. The alien message filled the room with a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "People of Earth, we are the galactic hegemony. For 10,000 years, we have brought order to the chaos of space. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of absorption into our empire. You have 2 Earth rotations to surrender and accept your place as our client race. Resistance will result in your extinction. This is not a negotiation." The room erupted in panic. Military officials shouted about launching missiles. Politicians demanded immediate surrender. But Sarah noticed something odd about the message. Something in its tone. "They're afraid," she said quietly at first, then louder. "They're afraid." The room fell silent. "Play it again," she commanded. As the message repeated, she smiled. "Listen to how they emphasize not a negotiation. They're used to species begging to negotiate. They're trying to prevent something they fear." General Martinez's eyes widened with understanding. "The defense systems." Sarah nodded. "They don't know about them. Any of them." She turned to the president's screen. "Ma'am, I recommend we show them exactly why Earth has never had a successful alien invasion." The president's face was grim but determined. "Do it." Sarah walked to the communication station and pressed the broadcast button. Her voice would now reach every alien ship. She thought about all the secret preparations humanity had made, the underground bases, the reverse-engineered technologies, the orbital platforms disguised as space junk. Most importantly, she thought about humanity's greatest weapon, its refusal to ever bow to tyrants. "Galactic hegemony," she spoke clearly, letting amusement color her voice. "We've received your message and find it quite entertaining. You see, there's something you should understand about humans. We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready for you?" She nodded to General Martinez, who pressed a series of buttons. Around the Earth, pieces of space debris suddenly came alive. Hundreds of defense platforms powered up, their cold fusion cores humming to life. Below the Pacific Ocean, hangar doors larger than cities began to open. You came expecting to find primitive savages cowering at your power. Instead, you found wolves watching you walk into our trap. We don't accept your offer of surrender. Instead, we have a message for you. Sarah leaned closer to the microphone, her voice carrying the weight of every human who had ever fought for freedom. "Die." The alien ship's surfaces rippled with what might have been surprise. In that moment, humanity revealed its first card in a game the hegemony didn't even know they were playing. The orbital platforms fired, their energy beams slicing through the crystalline ships like hot knives through butter. The war for Earth had begun, but not in the way the galactic hegemony had expected. They came looking for sheep to herd into their empire. Instead, they found a planet of warriors who had been waiting for this moment. The hegemony's response came within hours. Thousands of smaller crystal ships poured out of the larger vessels, their formations perfect and beautiful, like deadly snowflakes against the dark sky. They expected Earth's defenses to crumble quickly. They were wrong. Captain Lisa Wong sat in her control room deep beneath Mount Fuji, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. Around her, dozens of operators monitored Earth's defense grid. "Enemy ships approaching Japan sector," she announced calmly. "Activating pattern Delta." Above the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of seemingly inactive satellites suddenly sparked to life. The hegemony had dismissed them as space junk, one of humanity's greatest deceptions. Now these platforms revealed their true nature as state-of-the-art weapon systems. "They're so predictable," Lisa muttered, watching the alien ships maintain their perfect formation. Just like the simulations said. Fire. The defense platforms erupted with precise energy beams. The alien ship's crystalline structure, so beautiful and strong, became their greatest weakness. The beams hit at exactly the right frequency, and the first wave of ships simply shattered, breaking apart into millions of glittering pieces. In New York's underground command center, General Martinez watched the global battle map with satisfaction. "Look at them scramble," he said to Sarah Chen, who stood beside him. "They've never faced an enemy who was actually prepared." The alien ships tried to adjust their tactics, breaking formation and attacking from random vectors. But Earth's defense system was built on decades of preparation. Each platform could think and adapt, using artificial intelligence based on reverse-engineered alien tech found in crashed ships throughout history. "Sir," a young operator called out, "they're trying to hack our systems." Sarah smiled. "Let them try. Maya, show them what Earth's cyber defenses can do." In her lab in Bangalore, Dr. Maya Patel cracked her knuckles and grinned. Her team had spent years studying alien computer systems, building defenses, and preparing counterattacks. As the hegemony's probes hit Earth's networks, they encountered something they'd never seen before: human chaos theory applied to cyber warfare. "You like order so much," Maya whispered as she launched her counterattack. "Let's add some chaos." Her viruses, designed to exploit the rigid patterns in alien code, tore through their systems. Several smaller ships spun out of control, their navigation systems corrupted. The sky above Earth turned into a light show. Alien ships exploded into clouds of crystal shards, creating artificial meteor showers that lit up the night sky. People came out of their shelters to watch, cheering as each explosion marked another victory. But the hegemony still had one advantage: numbers. For every ship Earth destroyed, 3 more emerged from the massive motherships. They were determined to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer force. "They're adapting," Lisa reported from her command center, "starting to target our platforms directly." General Martinez nodded grimly. "Just as we planned. Sarah, give the order." Sarah Chen stepped up to the global command channel. "Attention all commands. Operation Rising Thunder is now in effect." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive doors began to open. The hegemony was about to learn that Earth's orbital defenses were just the first layer of humanity's preparations. As their ships celebrated destroying a few defense platforms, they didn't notice the massive shapes rising from the ocean depths. Humanity's hidden fleet was about to join the battle, and the real war was just beginning. Commander James Wolfe Kincaid stood on the bridge of the HS Defender, humanity's first true battleship, as it rose from its underwater hangar. Around his ship, dozens of others emerged from the depths like ancient sea monsters waking from sleep. Their dark hulls, made from metals that absorbed light rather than reflected it, were the opposite of the hegemony's shining crystal ships. "My grandfather would be proud," James whispered, touching the old pocket watch he always carried. For 3 generations, his family had helped guard humanity's greatest secret: the crashed alien ships found throughout Earth's history, and the technologies reversed engineered from them. "All ships report ready, Commander," his second-in-command, Lieutenant Rosa Martinez, announced. She was the general's daughter, and she had practically grown up in these secret bases. "Send the message," James ordered. His voice reached every ship in Earth's hidden fleet. "Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. These aliens think they own the galaxy. Let's show them that humans don't kneel to tyrants." The fleet of 50 ships shot up through the ocean at incredible speed, water falling away from their hulls like rain. They broke the surface in perfect formation, not the rigid geometric patterns the hegemony used, but an organic, flowing pattern that could adapt and change like a flock of birds. In their crystal ships high above, the hegemony commanders watched in shock as their sensors detected the new threats. These weren't primitive vessels. They were warships that matched or exceeded their own technology. Impossible. The hegemony fleet commander's voice boomed across space. Your species is pre-FTL. You cannot have such technology. James smiled as he opened a channel to respond. We've had visitors before you. The difference is, we learned from them instead of surrendering to them. Attack pattern Sigma. Show them what Earth can do. The human fleet split into smaller groups, moving with a speed and agility that seemed impossible for ships their size. Unlike the crystal ships of the hegemony, Earth's vessels were built for war. Each one carried weapons and defenses developed from 1,000 years of human warfare, enhanced by alien technology. They're trying to surround us, Rosa reported, watching the enemy ships move to encircle their group. Perfect, James replied. Activate the gravity drives. The human ships suddenly released controlled gravitational pulses, technology reversed engineered from a crash site in Antarctica. The pulses caught the crystal ships in their fields, and the effects were devastating. The rigid crystalline structures couldn't handle the gravitational stress. Dozens of enemy ships cracked and shattered. In the UN Command Center, Sarah Chen watched the space battle with amazement. The Sentinel Initiative, she said quietly. All these years, they were preparing for this day. General Martinez nodded. Every crashed ship, every piece of alien tech we found, we didn't just study them. We improved them, made them our own. But the hegemony still had tricks of their own. Several of their larger ships began to pulse with strange energy. The crystal surfaces of their vessels started to glow with an inner light that seemed almost alive. Sir, Rosa called out, we're detecting massive energy readings from the enemy fleet. Something's happening to their ships. James gripped his command chair as alarms blared across the bridge. The hegemony was about to reveal their true nature, and the real test of humanity's preparations was about to begin. Dr. Maya Patel hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't stop now. Her fingers flew across multiple holographic screens as she directed Earth's cyber warfare campaign from her underground facility in Bangalore. Around her, dozens of experts worked at similar stations, their faces lit by the glow of their screens. They're not just using computers, she muttered, watching strange patterns flow across her display. The crystals themselves are like giant processors. Each ship is one big quantum computer. Then she smiled. But every computer has a weakness. In space, the battle had reached a stalemate. The hegemony ships were regrouping, their crystalline surfaces pulsing with that strange, living light. Earth's fleet held position in a defensive formation around the planet, while the orbital platforms continued their relentless fire. Commander James Kincaid watched from the bridge of the Defender as several enemy ships began moving in an unusual pattern. They're up to something, he said. All ships, prepare for. Suddenly, his tactical screen exploded with warnings. The enemy ships were emitting some kind of sonic pulse that traveled through space in ways that should have been impossible. Multiple hits reported. Lieutenant Rosa Martinez called out, "The sound. It's affecting our hull integrity." But James was smiling. They think they can beat us with sound. He opened a channel to all Earth ships. Activate Protocol Thunder. Every human ship suddenly extended what looked like giant tuning forks from their hulls. These were sonic resonators, developed after studying the musical patterns in alien crystal technology found in an ancient crash site in Peru. As the enemy sound waves approached, Earth's ships didn't try to block them. They amplified them and sent them back. The effect on the crystal ships was spectacular. The reflected sound waves, now perfectly tuned to the crystalline resonance frequency, shattered ship after ship into beautiful, glittering clouds of debris. It's working, Rosa shouted. Their own weapon is their weakness, James finished. Maya. Now, in her command center, Maya initiated her masterstroke. She had finally cracked the code of how the crystal ships communicated. Let's see how they handle a little chaos in their perfect system, she said, launching her virus. The virus spread through the quantum crystalline network like wildfire. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly spun out of control. Some fired on their own allies. Others simply shut down, their lights going dark. Their entire network is compromised, Maya reported to the UN Command Center. They're running on basic systems only now. No more fancy quantum computing. Sarah Chen and General Martinez watched from Earth as the tide of battle turned decisively. The remaining hegemony ships were retreating, pulling back to their larger vessels. Wait, Sarah said, leaning forward. Something's wrong. Look at the energy readings from their motherships. The 12 massive crystal ships were changing. Their surfaces weren't just glowing now. They were becoming transparent, revealing something inside. Something that moved like living light. By all the gods, General Martinez whispered. They're not just using crystal ships. They are crystal beings. James watched from the Defender as streams of pure energy began pouring out of the giant ships, heading straight for Earth's fleet. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he ordered. They're not retreating. They're emerging from their shells. The hegemony was revealing their true form, and the battle was about to enter a phase that no one on Earth had predicted. The question was, would humanity's preparations be enough for what came next? The beings of pure energy swarmed through space like rivers of living light. Their true forms were beautiful but terrifying, constantly shifting patterns of blue-white radiance that moved with impossible speed. The crystal ships had never been their vessels. They had been their cocoons. Emergency protocols. Commander James Kincaid shouted as one of the energy beings passed straight through his ship's hull. All around him, crew members collapsed as the entity tried to possess them. But something unexpected happened. Instead of taking control, the energy being recoiled from each human mind it touched. Lieutenant Rosa Martinez was the first to understand why. They can't handle our emotions, she called out, fighting off her own attempted possession. Our minds are too chaotic for them. In the New York Command Center, Sarah Chen watched in horror as the energy beings tried to infiltrate Earth's defenses. But reports were coming in from all fronts. The possession attempts were failing. Of course, she whispered. They're beings of pure logic. That's why they built their empire on perfect order. And that's why they can't control us. The hegemony's leader, the particularly bright energy form, appeared on all communication channels. Its voice echoed with frustration. Your minds are diseased with disorder. How can you function with such chaos, such contradiction? Dr. Maya Patel laughed from her command center as she analyzed the readings. That's humanity's superpower, she said. We can believe two opposite things at once. We can feel love and hate in the same moment. We're walking contradictions. And proud of it. The energy beings tried a new tactic, attempting to possess Earth's ships directly. But humanity had one final surprise waiting. James pressed a button on his command chair, activating the quantum probability drives in every human vessel. Let's show them what chaos really means, he said with a grin. The drives activated, making each ship exist in multiple quantum states at once. The energy beings, trying to interface with the ship's computers, found themselves tangled in probability fields that their logical minds couldn't process. It's working, Rosa shouted. They can't maintain their form when they try to possess the quantum drives. Several energy beings became distorted, their light flickering and fading as they tried to escape the quantum effect. Others retreated in what appeared to be genuine fear, an emotion they had likely never experienced before. But the hegemony's leader wasn't finished. It gathered the remaining energy beings into a massive, swirling vortex of light. If we cannot possess you, its voice boomed, we will simply erase you. The vortex began to pulse with devastating energy waves that could tear matter apart at the atomic level. This was the hegemony's final weapon, the ability to unmake physical matter itself. Sarah's voice came over the fleet channel. Commander Kincaid, Dr. Patel, Implement the Chaos Protocol. Everyone else, brace for impact. Maya's fingers danced across her console, initiating a program she had hoped she'd never have to use. In space, James gave the order that would change the course of the war. All ships, cross your quantum probability fields. Let's show these logical beings what happens when you push humans too far. As the energy vortex descended toward Earth, humanity prepared to break the laws of physics itself. The hegemony was about to learn that human determination could bend reality itself. When the quantum probability fields of Earth's ships crossed, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The energy vortex of the hegemony leaders hit the intersection point of the fields, and something impossible happened. The logical and ordered beings found themselves trapped in a bubble of pure chaos. Their own power is being reflected back at them. Maya's excited voice came through the command channel. The quantum fields are creating a feedback loop of probability. The hegemony beams of light writhed and twisted, their perfect forms distorting as they experienced something they had never known in their millions of years of existence: uncertainty. Commander James Kincaid watched from the Defender's Bridge as the enemy's powerful energy form began to fracture. "Broadcast on all frequencies," he ordered. "Let every enslaved world see their perfect masters falling." Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds enslaved by the hegemony, beings of every shape and form watched their overlord's perfect order crumble. The crystalline communication network that had been used to control them now showed their master's weakness. Lieutenant Rosa Martinez monitored the incoming signals. "Sir, we're getting responses. Other worlds. They're rising up. On a dozen worlds, crystalline ships were being destroyed by their own slave races. On 100 more, resistance movements that had been crushed for generations suddenly sprang back to life. The perfect order of the hegemony was dissolving into beautiful chaos. In her command center, Sarah Chen was already talking to alien resistance leaders. Her diplomatic skills were being put to a new use, coordinating a galaxy-wide revolution. "The hegemony told us we were primitive because we didn't match their logic," she told a gathering of rebel leaders from across the galaxy. "But look at what our primitive emotions have achieved. We've proven that diversity, chaos, and free will are stronger than their perfect order." An alien resistance leader, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a dolphin, spoke up. "You've given us more than victory. You've given us hope. Earth must lead the new alliance." The trapped hegemony beings were weakening. Their light, once so bright and perfect, was becoming dim and erratic. But their leader made one final attempt to maintain control. "You primitives cannot govern yourselves." Its voice boomed, though now it trembled with an emotion that sounded very much like fear. "Without our order, the galaxy will fall into chaos." Dr. Maya Patel, who had finally taken a moment to drink some much-needed coffee, laughed at her screen. "That's the point. Chaos is where the best ideas come from. Order is stagnation. Chaos is growth." The quantum probability field was still spreading, carried by the hegemony's own communication network. Everywhere it touched, the perfect crystal ships began to crack, their energy being masters losing their hold on physical reality. Commander Kincaid opened a channel to all Earth forces and their new allies. "This is how liberty spreads, not through perfect order, but through the beautiful chaos of free will. All ships, prepare for the final push." The combined fleet of Earth ships and newly liberated alien vessels moved into position. They were an odd sight, vessels of all shapes and sizes, flying in formations that looked random but contained their own organic beauty. The age of the hegemony was ending. But first, they would need to win one final battle, a battle that would determine whether the galaxy would be ruled by perfect order or embrace the beautiful chaos of freedom. The final battle took place in Earth's orbit, where it had all begun. The remaining hegemony energy beings, their perfect light now flickering and unstable, gathered for one last desperate attack. They drew power from their dying crystal ships, forming a massive wave of pure energy that threatened to overwhelm everything in its path. Commander James Kincaid stood on the bridge of the Defender, his grandfather's watch in his hand. "All ships, move into Formation Delta," he ordered. "Maya, are you ready?" "Born ready," Dr. Maya Patel replied from her command center. Her fingers flew across the holographic controls as she prepared to launch humanity's final surprise. "The quantum virus is primed. We just need them to take the bait." The massive energy wave approached Earth's combined fleet, but instead of retreating, the ships moved into what looked like a random scatter pattern. Lieutenant Rosa Martinez smiled as she recognized the formation. It wasn't random at all, but a complex mathematical pattern based on chaos theory. "Your order is an illusion," Sarah Chen's voice broadcasted to the hegemony beings. "True strength comes from embracing chaos, change, and growth. Humanity learned this lesson long ago. Now it's your turn." The energy wave struck the fleet's formation, but instead of destroying the ships, something strange happened. The pattern of the ships created a complex quantum interference effect, turning the wave back on itself. "Now, Maya," James shouted. Maya launched her quantum virus, a program that didn't just affect computers, but reality itself. It spread through the energy being's own network, introducing something they had never experienced before: true randomness. The hegemony leaders screamed in voices that shattered windows across Earth's hemisphere. Their perfect forms began to unravel as they experienced the one thing they had spent millennia trying to eliminate: unpredictability. "They're trying to retreat," Rosa called out, watching the energy beings attempt to flee. "Not this time," James said quietly. He pressed a button on his command chair, activating the quantum probability drives of every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "Let's show them what chaos really means." The space around Earth rippled as hundreds of quantum fields intersected. The hegemony beings found themselves trapped in a web of pure probability, where every possible outcome existed simultaneously. Their logical minds couldn't handle the contradictions. One by one, the energy beings winked out of existence, their perfect order dissolving into the chaos they had feared for so long. The last to go was their leader, who transmitted a final message. We understand now. The pattern, in the chaos." Then they were gone. The crystal ships fell dark and began to drift, now nothing more than beautiful shells in space. Sarah Chen stood in the UN hall a week later, addressing representatives from over 1,000 alien worlds via hologram. "The hegemony tried to impose perfect order on a chaotic universe," she said. "But we proved that real strength comes from embracing that chaos, from celebrating our differences, from being wonderfully, perfectly imperfect." Commander Kincaid, standing beside her, added, "They gave us one choice: submit or die. We gave them a better option: learn to live with chaos. They couldn't adapt, but we can help build a galaxy that celebrates diversity instead of fearing it." Dr. Maya Patel, who had finally gotten some sleep, smiled as she worked on adapting the crystal ship's technology for peaceful purposes. "Every end is a new beginning," she said to her team. "Even randomness has patterns, if you know how to look for them." As Earth's ships prepared to help their new allies rebuild, the message that had started it all, "Die," had been replaced with a new one that spread hope across the galaxy. Live free, grow, and thrive in the beautiful chaos of existence. The age of perfect order was over. The age of beautiful chaos had begun.